The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. Our host today is Per Mogensen, the President and CEO of MergeTool. He's the founder, as well as the President and CEO, and the lead developer of NAV Easy Security and MergeTool. He's worked with NAV since 1992, where after finishing his master's degree in engineering, he started working at Navision in Denmark. While he was there, Per developed several of the basic features in NAV, like posting setup, VAT sales tax, distribution functionality, and was responsible for the localizations for several European countries. In 2000, Per moved to the U.S., where he started as development manager at Lanham Associates and the lead developer of eShip, ADCS warehousing, and history management. Since 2012, Per has been awarded the MVP status for Dynamics NAV for his contributions to the NAV community. Just so everyone knows, this morning on our webinar, everybody is automatically muted just to keep things running smoothly, but if you have any questions, feel free to type those into the questions box, and I will call them out to Per. And without further ado, Per, will turn it right over to you.
Thank you, Abby. Yeah, I want to go through NAV Easy Security. It's a solution for handling security inside NAV, both for the RoleTailored and Classic clients. One of the advantages of our application is we basically use the same data structure going all the way from 2.6 all the way to the latest 2015. So when upgrading, a lot of your security can actually move forward. And you can take one of the tasks that you normally have to deal with when upgrading out of the equation to a large degree by actually doing the security in the Classic environment before you even upgrade. But the solution consists of two parts. One is the field level action and data security, and that's all the things you normally cannot do in NAV. We will have features to hide fields and things like that one. The other part is for the login and permission, and it's a set of tools for the standard NAV security. We also have an Easy Security Lite version. It's a set of tools also for NAV security. It works quite different compared to our full version, and it's intended for smaller customers, allowing to copy permission from one user to another and so on. But let's look at the login and permissions first in here. The key data or the key function in here is that we can record permissions. You basically just use the application, and we will record both data and object permissions required for that process. We can also group permissions, and we can group companies. So instead of assigning many different permission set or roles, as they're called in 2009 and earlier, you will maybe assign one group like customer service, finance manager, and you select one group of companies to assign those ones in also. We can also handle expiration, and that's one of those things that even with a great security setup, over time it can kind of degrade because people need temporary permissions, and it's hard to figure out what to take away again when they don't need them any longer. If you've heard about Quick or Easy Security before, we're adding a new feature in here, and it's going to be called Quick Security or Go Live Security. It's intended for having pretty decent security in the Go Live scenario without actually spending a lot of time maintaining it. And for many people, it's enough for running their security. We're basically going to make all setup tables read-only. We're going to make table required for the processors having full access. And we're going to enable object level security so you can take away chart of accounts, general ledger entries, customer ledger entries, important things like that one. Very, very simple. So you're basically setting up security by doing the few things that are important instead of dealing with all the things that are not so important for you. And that's going to be what is called quick security. Basically, you're going to get 5 roles, and you should be able to almost manage all security with only these 5 roles. If you need more advanced security, you want to accomplish segregation of duties, that is one of the requirements for Sarbanes Oxley. We also have a set of permissions for that one that we're shipping with the products. They're all based on recordings, so you can actually take all your localizations or ISV products into account, or many of them, using even the roles we actually ship. As we change security, we actually always work offline. So you can make all the changes, you can take a look and see everything looks good, and then you're going to publish the permission. We can also roll back or compare permissions over time based on the restore points we create during that process. And we have an easy way of enabling object-level security, again, taking away important objects from people that you don't want them to have, but where they need to have access to the data to be able to do the processing that they do as part of that work, of course. The other part of the application is the field level and data security. And that's allow you both for pages and forms, it's RTC versus Classic Client, to make them editable, read-only, or completely hide these objects. We can do the same for fields, where we can turn them read-only or hide the cost field, for example, for salespeople on item cards, item lists, sales lines, and things like that one. We can also control the actions or buttons in the Classic environments. We can gray them out so people can't release or reopen sales orders, or we can completely hide the buttons if we don't want people to click on statistics, for example. We also allow filtering of data with this solution. So when you have salespeople and you maybe want them to have access to all the sales orders for their location, but you only want them to edit sales orders where they are the salesperson on, that's one of the things we can easily accomplish with the data security that we have. We also have filters based on users. So you basically can create a record for the user and say this user should only see these customers, they should only see these salespeople, and so on. A very simple way to apply user-defined security that way. So these 2 things are the full solution for Easy Security in here. I also want to just mention the Lite product in here. And one of the big advantages, it's actually free for a large portion of the application. It's a set of tools where we can copy access control from one user to another. We can assign multiple permission sets in multiple companies as a wizard, and we can add related permissions based on a single permission in NAV that way. We also have a recorder in here, and that recorder allows you to record table data permissions for the tables, for the customization area, and for the localization area in the free version. But you can unlock that one, and then you can record table data for all tables in the system. We use snapshots in that version. It's very different from restore point, but it allows you to roll back a single user or a single permission set based on a previous version of that one. But let's go ahead and take a look on this one, and I'm going to mainly show the full version, or I will only show the full version in here. I want to show how we maintain logins, how we record permissions, and I will show some of the demo data we actually deliver with the application. I also publish the permission, and then I will go show how fields level and data security works in here. So, but let's get into NAV, and I'm going to use 2015 for this one. It's the most current version of NAV, but our application, as already mentioned, is basically the same for all versions of NAV. I want to take a look at my logins first, and since we maintain all data offline in here, if you create a new user, you do it in the standard screen, but you go into our application after that and assign the permissions in here. So I have a new user John in here, and he has no permissions right now. We can assign permission sets, but we can also assign groups of permission, and the groups will minimize the amount of data to maintain to a very high degree in here. So let's take a look at one of the groups I have, and I can see down here under sales, I have basic, I have relationship management, a little inventory and purchase, and I have some roles in the sales receivable area. Basically everything a user working in customer service would need in here. We can also combine these ones and take these groups and include them in other groups up here, simplifying the maintenance quite a lot in here. But let's just go ahead and add the sales role in here. The same way as we combine roles or permission sets into groups, we do the same for companies in here. So I have 3 companies in my database, Easy Security, Europe, and North America. But I created a group that contained 2 of these companies in here, basically combining this one for assigning to only look like a single group of companies in here. So I assigned 1 line of access controls in here. If I update this login, I'll go ahead and see that I would normally need to maintain 28 records. But another thing we do is calculate something called summary permissions in here. And summary permission is the total permission by table, by company in here. And in my vendor ledger entry as an example in here, I can see in each company, I currently only have read permission because this role was for customer service in here. If I wanted to, I can actually go in here and look at where used for the objects. It's kind of a navigate. It's just you're only looking at security data in here. And I can see across the system how many places my vendor ledger entry is actually being used in here. So I have 119 roles that actually give permission to that one, and I can see the level in each of them in here. Assigning permission like this one makes it quite easy to do this one. But another thing we do is actually allow you to use expiry date in here. And I could go in and say, yeah, I need to have John be the operation manager in North America for the next couple of months maybe in here. Or I would actually have to kind of put it back in time in here because I don't think I'm allowed to. Let's see if I can take that date in here. No, you don't like that date because I have a Kronos license in here. So let's go allow him until 1st of November in here to be the operation manager. That should allow the date to be used in here. But basically I'm assigning a temporary permission and I give an expiry date also. And when that date comes, it's not going to remove it. It's just going to put a check mark in that it's not an active permission any longer. So if I calculate it as it is right now, I'll see that I got 10 more access controls for John based on the combination of permission sets and companies out here. And of course my summary permission also changed. So now in my North America company, I can see that John has access to insert and modify also out here. The same feature about removing all the permissions can be done for the user also, or you can put an expiry date on a user or make a user like another person in here. So this one minimizes your day-to-day task of assigning permission to users or setting up new users and makes it a lot more matching maybe your organizational chart. When you add a new person, it's pretty obvious what permission group they should actually be in at that time. The other part of NAV security is, of course, that you need to create permission sets. And permission set contains a lot of records. And it's really because there's many small permissions needed for many of the different tasks. And modifying a customer, of course, would be requiring the customer. But if we look at the role that comes from Microsoft that is supposed to be or is being used for editing a customer in here, I'll see that it actually requires 117 permissions to be able to edit a customer in here. And that's in an unmodified database. So to make this process a lot easier, we actually use a recorder in here. And we use the SQL Server profiler. And I'll just go ahead and start it in here. I'll select my SQL Server. And then go in and say I want to filter only for certain transactions in here. And my database is containing 8-0 in the name in here. So I go into filter on that one. But I would also be able to filter on a single service tier and many other things. But since I'm alone in this environment, I can actually just run this one, and I will see that it starts recording permissions in here. There's a few things going on, even if nothing happens in the database. But as I go back, and I will go edit a customer in here, it will start capturing both the reads of data, but it actually also capture what objects are being used for this process in here. So as I go into a customer card, it gets quite busy back here, capturing all the things that are needed for editing a customer in here. And I'll just change my address and go ahead and close this one in here. So as I was editing that customer, this process was capturing permissions back here, or it was capturing the transaction, but I'm going to save this one as edit customer trace. And I'll go back to Easy Security, create a new permission set, and then name it edit customer, and add a new recording in here. I'll just select the one I just created in here, and these files get quite large, so you want to focus on just a single task in NAV, as you see with the roles we have created in here also. As it imports this trace, it will identify all the table numbers and all the other details that is actually required for setting up permissions in here. So I can see it found 98 permissions inside this single trace that I actually did in here. And if I go take a look at it, I'll see, of course, in my customer table, that happens to be number 18, I have read and modify. But I also needed to modify my contacts and some other tables related to contact management down here. And if I go down to the bottom, I know which pages, queries, and code units were actually also being executed in here. And it allows us a whole new level of security. We can take away objects from people, like the customer card or chart of account. And if you want people to go in there, you just make a recording where that object is being used, and then people get the access to it in here. But I'm going to add my recording with these 98 permissions in here. And as I do that one, it will apply the source code analyzer, and it will give you more permissions in here. I can see a lot of these will now say additional. And because I had modified permission on my customer, I really need to be able to look up to the country, the language, the salesperson, location, and all those things. And I didn't need it to do that during the recording. It's actually going to add those permissions for me automatically in here. So the recording of permissions is really a key to how you actually can very simple create new records or create new roles. And you can also update existing roles, because I could actually go in here and say, for the one that is delivered from Microsoft for editing a customer, I could go add the same recording that I just added for my other one, basically now correcting a problem or maybe adding missing permissions in here. And as I do that, I'll just attach my recording, and I'll update that and I can see now the permission grew quite a lot in here. And if I actually went in and looked at it, I will see that, for example, the postcode and some of these tables were actually missing in this row in here, for example. So again, the only way to normally set up permission is simply to use a recorder. With these features about maintaining login symbol and creating new permission sets, you can set up security without a lot of trial and error, but it still requires some time to get started. The last piece we deliver in here is a set of roles that are actually pre-recorded. We have taken the approach in saying we're going to look at one little task in NAV, like editing a customer, like I just did in here. First of all, it makes it very simple to record because there's not a lot of things you need to be doing at that time. And you can also verify that people don't get too many permissions pretty easily when these roles are so narrow. We have done the same for each document type. We split the posting of shipments and other things in multiple roles down here. We've done the same for purchase. We've done it for finance, breaking down the posting in different document types or different account types. And we have done it for inventory. A total of around 80 roles or so, but covering a very large portion of the application. Basically all the places where money is involved and where segregation of duties are interesting in NAV. We also recorded permission for role centers, and we have some technical roles that we actually use for assigning permissions also to certain user types. When you've broken down the NAV application in small pieces, you can now go in and say, okay, my customer service people, what should they be doing in here? And I can see I decided not to make them create customers, but they can edit customers down here. And the other task in NAV. And everything this customer service column is, it's actually just a role group in Easy Security. So by breaking down security in small roles and then assigning them in a role group, it's easy to assign to the user and it's easy to maintain going forward. And all this data is being delivered with Easy Security. So if I actually go up and take a look at my customer edit up here, it's based on recordings the same way as I just recorded. And these recordings are actually done in 2009, 2013, 13R2, and also 2015. So the same role works for 4 different versions of NAV actually in here. And because the recording take into account many of the extra table relation and flow fields added in a customer database, those ones actually work even with a customized application or additional ISV solutions in there. So that's an important part also of our application, that we actually have a set of valuable demo data that you also can get right out of the box in here and jumpstart your setup of security in here. Everything I have done until this point have been in the Kronos Easy Security company and only inside the Easy Security application. I haven't changed anything yet, and I'm going to, in my sales permission group in here, go and add my new role that was called Edit Customer in here. And then I want to change the user's permission. At this point, I need to have a high level of permission. But until now, I only needed access to one company and only to the Easy Security application. So I'm going to go here and publish my changes. And it actually is going to go through a process where it will both calculate the data to see that everything is based on the most current objects in the database. It will recalculate all the roles or permission sets. So if I had new code changes, many of those ones will actually be picked up automatically in here. I'll also unfold all the grouping. So we don't change how permission is enforced in NAV with this application. We only change how you maintain it in here. before we actually change anything in the real data, we're going to create a restore point. So if these new permissions don't work out well, we can just go ahead and roll back the previous permission and then start working on figuring out what was missing in here before that one. The actual writing of permission here is very short. It's only the few records that are actually being changed in here based on those changes that I just made in here. So I added a role and I changed John and added changes to a group in here also. There's a way for testing also to actually do a reduced process in here or update a single login also if necessary, or you can even use direct integration and just change it without even going through a process at all in here. But I've changed my security, and if I take a look at our restore points in here, we can see that we created a restore point here right before we changed anything. So if I wanted to do a new one, I can just create another snapshot of my permissions in here. And that will give me another rollback point if I actually wanted to in here also. So I can see I had a little more than 200 extra records added in here actually based on this one. We can compare these restore points. So instead of looking at individual records, I can go in and say I want to look at my users, the permission sets, and I want to compare my 28 with the 27 that was right before I changed anything. So now it generates data and grayed out is old information and bold is new changes. So I can go in here and look at, for my user Susan, I have the new role edit customer in Kronos Europe and Kronos North America in here. And I can go through and jump through the changes in here. John got a whole bunch of new permissions because he didn't have anything. Here's a Lisa user that also got the edit customer. I created my new permission sets, and that was basically all the changes. If you have auditors that come in on a regular basis looking at security, you can actually save off one of these restore points, and then you can make it compare next time they come in and show them what changes are actually being done in here. The same summary permission that I showed other places can also be calculated for anything else in the inside Easy Security, or we can even calculate it for the live permissions also. So if I actually looked at live users, I would be able to see that summary permissions also. So, but that's one side of the application. It's a standard NAV security in here. And before I switch to the field level, that is another part of the application, I want to just in a minute here show what the light product is and how it's different from the other one. The light product don't work offline as I did before. It basically is a set of tools where when I look at users, I can copy access controls from one user to another. So I could go in here and say I have this user Simon up here. I want to copy the access controls. And I want to go ahead and copy them from John. And there was 40 access control added because Simon had nothing in here. But I could add new, I could completely replace also. I can also go ahead and add multiple access controls in here. So I can go in and say I want all these ones in here. And I want them in these two companies. And two of them already existed in here, but it's going to add 16. And I can say yes in here, and it actually adds all those permissions in here. So in that way, it makes it a little easier to maintain the standard NAV security in here. The other part is, of course, the permission sets. And again, we have functionality to add related permissions in here. So based on a single table, you could, for example, go down here and say, I wanted to add related permissions based on that one. So if you had customization, it will help you add those related permissions. It's not a powerful source code analyzer as we have in a full product, but it is allowing you to add simple permissions or table relations in here. We can also record permissions in here. So if I actually go in and say I'm going to have a customer with the Easy Security Lite module creating a new permission set, we import the exact same trace that I did before, and I want to add related permissions in here. As I do this one, it says I'm using the completely free version, so it has a limitation on the table data it's importing. But it's basically went through, identified all the tables, and added related permissions in here. So many of these ones, I didn't record salesperson, shipment method, and country, but it actually still gave me those permissions because I had the modifier on the custom out here. So it works pretty similar, well, it's not very similar, I mean, to the full version, but it's a set of nice tools that allow you to maintain security for simple setups a lot easier in NAV. I want to go back to the full version of Easy Security now again, and I want to take a look at field level security, because one of the things in NAV is that you can control data down to the object level. You can't control individual pages differently if you actually only have record level security in here. And many times you either want to hide fields or you want to go make certain fields non-editable for some users. You also sometimes create additional screens to actually simplify the pages so there are not so many actions and not so many fields showing for the people out in the warehouse. And all these things can actually be accomplished with the field level security in here. Right now, everything looks completely normal. I have all my menu items, and I have every field in here being editable in here. I'm going to go back to Easy Security and create a user security setup in here. And we intentionally don't have this one being related to the standard NAV security, because we also want this to actually be useful for controlling super users in here. But I went in and for the blank user, creating a default for everyone in the sales setup, I now have read-only access. So if I go back, look at my list of sales orders, my menu items gray out up here. I can't click on anything anymore. If I look at a single sales order, every field is now grayed out, and every action is grayed out up here also. So basically this screen now is completely read-only. I can't change anything under invoicing or anywhere else in the system. If I go back and say, yeah, that's fine for my default, I go into, when I'm getting into NAV as the user down here, the way I'm logged in, I'm going to have a different setup for security. I could leave it blank, of course, and get the full, but I'm going to select the basic setup in here. So if I now go back and look at my sales order, I'll see that my statistics button came back on again, and it allows me to open up that screen now. I can also change the sell-to customer number, and if I go down to my shipping, I'll see that I have several fields down here that are editable for me. But the shipment method and things like that one is not editable in here. And if I look under invoicing, everything is grayed out for me in here. I could go take a look at credit memos, and at credit memos, I still couldn't do anything in here. Everything would be read-only for me, and I can't click on any of the actions up here either. So I want to take a look at the setup out here for the user security. So that code basic out there. It means that I can actually control every object in NAV in here. And you can create as many of these code as you want, depending on what setups you need. But I can see each object has its own setup in here. And as I look at this one, again, 0 is my default. So I define that I want every page by default to show up read-only in here. But I can also hide pages in here. So if I didn't want people to see that sales order statistics that I actually clicked on, I can go in and say I want to hide that page in here. On my sales order, I have specified fields. On my quote, it's just left completely normal in here. But as I look at my sales order now, again, I'm defining the default, and let's make the default that I hide every field in here. And then I only want to make my sell-to customer number view. I can go down and look at my actions, and again, this one has the same options in here, edit, view, and hide. So I'm going to hide every action in here, and then just go down and add my post and print. And I'm going to make that a view button. So people can see it, but they can't click on it. So if I now go back and look at my sales order, it's going to look quite different. Again, the same thing, setting up each object individually. And as I look at it, page 0, again, is the default. And I'll go in and see on my customer posting group, I have a hidden filters. The user can't see it, and they can't remove it, and it's for the domestic posting group out here. But I also have an editable one for the blue location in here. Necessary to keep on changing this one as the date changed, for example. And if I wanted to filter on the work date, I couldn't really specify it because that was something that the individual user would actually select himself in here. We have a long list of these, what we call dynamic filters in here. And one of the things we can do is basically filter on the work year, and it just put it in as a variable in here. So, but let me go ahead and apply my domestic filter and go back and take a look at how my customer list now looks. So I can see my date filter was applied in here. And if I get rid of all filters in here and collapse this up here, I can see I now only have a list of my domestic customers, and there is no filters applied, at least that the user can get rid of in here. If I try to open up my customer card for a place where there's a wrong location in here, I'll see that this customer 40,000, it cannot be retrieved, and it basically shows me the first customer that is within my filter for blue and domestic up here. So it can be used for having salespeople that can see the list of all sales orders for their location, but they can only edit the one or open up the card for the one where they actually are the salesperson on, for example. You can also not allow people to see item cards for blocked items and things like that one, so they can't go and unblock them and things like that one, for example. So, but that's the last piece of the application I want to show in here. I want to go back to the PowerPoint again in here. And as you saw in here, I went through this demonstration in here. This application is available for all versions of NAV. We typically release within 30 days of Microsoft releasing, and as already mentioned, we are CFMD certified or certified for Microsoft Dynamics by Microsoft, for both 2013 and 2015 actually. We don't care about the application you're running. We don't have any modified objects as it gets installed on our application, so there's no manual merge required. The field level security require a process to be run to actually be able to get the changes in, but again, it's a one-time task, and it's actually possible to also remove all those changes again, so you don't have an impact on future upgrades from that. The application is available in 8 languages, including French and German and Danish. That are some of the larger languages in here. We also have complete documentation and online help for the application also. If we look at the pricing, I've shown you 3 things in here: the permissions and logins application, part of the full solution for Easy Security, and it costs $2,500 US. The field level and data security also costs $2,500 US, and they can be purchased individually. You don't need one to use the other one. If you get the complete solution, there's a little saving because one of the modules are actually shared in here. We can, if the application is not too modified or we can actually do installation and support directly for the application also. And the Easy Security Lite product is completely free for the basic features. If you want to unlock the recording so you can record all table data, that's a $250 charge actually. Since it's a CFMD application, there is no additional object cost for Microsoft for using this application. We have many customers, and here's a couple of quotes from some of our first ones, and you can also find these ones in some of the case studies we have. But it basically went from taking 2 hours and a lot of trial and error to take 5 minutes to create a new role for Antoine. That was actually one of our first customers that we went live with. We currently have over 700 customers using our application in more than 50 countries. We have 5 case studies on the website, and you can go take a look at them. If you click on that link down there, they'll be out on the right side, so you can see the case studies. We can also do a more personal application if you want, and you can contact your NAV partner about that one. Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions or anything I didn't cover. I don't know if anyone is interested in seeing this in the Classic environment, or I could go ahead and just show the field level security, how that actually works. Everything else works completely the same between the Classic and the latest NAV version.
Per, I do have a question. Can the attendees get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation?
Yep, I'll send that to you afterwards, and then you can post it together with the recording.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And the recording will be posted on our ABC website.
Yeah, there's actually a lot more slides than what you have seen in this, by the way. There's a lot about how security works in NAV in general in here. So they'll maybe be nice knowledge also to actually find in this PowerPoint set here. So. If any of you are familiar with Easy Security, have seen it before, you probably noticed that we have never talked about quick security. And if you look on our website, it's not there yet, but it's we're waiting for the documentation to be updated. But then we're going to releasing this one very soon, within a month or so. So if you want those features, you can for sure get them also.
I do have another question. What would the next webinar or training be on running the tools for field security or for field level security?
If you actually wanted to take a look at that one, we have a lot of information on our website. If you want to know more details about how to use this application, we do online training and setup, and we actually have recorded a session in here about how to use the application in here. So there's 2 YouTube videos. I think that's around an hour in total actually for some of the basic features, and also how you actually do more maintenance in here. So these ones are very detailed, and that's typically the process we go through during the customer training also. So you'll get all the details about how the application actually works, including seeing how the implementation engine works in the second video. But in general, there's, by the way, a large amount of documentation on here. I think there's 400 pages in total, and around 40 or 50 YouTube videos out here that are showing specific features of the application, both for field level and data security, but also for the roles and logins part in here. The same thing also goes for the light product, where you can see how the application is used for that also. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions.
I don't have any at the moment, but if anyone has any final questions, please feel free to type them on in. I'll shout them out and get them answered for you. Well, it looks great here, Per. If anyone would like a copy of the slide deck, if you wouldn't mind typing it into the question box so that I can send it to you directly via email. And then the recording will be available through our ABC website and also on YouTube. That's how we get the video of the recording out. But if anybody wants the slide deck itself, I'm happy to email that to you directly. Again, our website, abc-computers.com. You're going to find this recording later today in the recorded webinar section. And Per, it looks like that's everything we've got today as far as questions.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for attending, and we hope you will continue to come to these webinars, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.